Good afternoon. My name is Lena Marrera. I'm here for GNP Idiomas, and we are working on putting together some teacher tutorials to help teachers explain grammar to children about intermediate level. Okay. This is tutorial number 4, and today we are going to be talking about conditionals. Okay. There are 4 conditionals, 4 basic conditionals. Okay, these are conditionals. There's a zero conditional. It's called a zero conditional because in fact it is not a conditional. What it is it's a fact or an empirical truth or an imperative. Okay, that's the reason that it's called the zero conditional. Okay, a fact is something like, well, first of all, the formation, it's the if. Okay, you could use if or you could use when. All right, any sort of time clause here. All right, what is a time clause? Well, when, after, once, before. All right, those are time clauses. If with a present simple, and in the other sentence, the other part, the other phrase, we have another present simple, or an imperative. Okay, so an example of an empirical truth would be if you heat water, there would be your present simple, it boils. Alright, so that would be an empirical truth. Okay. An example of an imperative, if you go to London, call me, and this would be the imperative. Okay, so this is not a conditional. This is always true. The difference between the 0 and the 1 in the first conditional is the fact that this one is a particular case that's true, and this one, well, it's always true, and this one is a situation where you're predicting the outcome, all right? The first conditional is if again, or a time clause, all right, with the present. Again, present simple, present continuous. But the second part is either the will or going to. Okay? We use might in the first conditional a lot for warnings. Okay? So here you're predicting an outcome from a situation that's a given. All right? So let's say if you sit in the sun for too long, what would be a warning? Well, you might burn. Alright? So careful. Okay? Or you will burn if you're sure of it. So that would be your first conditional, alright? Very similar. Alright? Very, very similar and often confused. Just keep in mind that this one is the general situation. This is much more specific. Okay? So the 0 and the first conditional. Now let's move on to the second and the third. The second conditional is the hypothetical conditional, and it's probably the most common conditional that we use. Right? Second conditional. Here. The second conditional is again if. I can also use unless here. Okay? We can use unless in the 0 and the first conditional, although it's much more commonly seen in the second conditional. Here I use that with the past simple. And the second part, I use the would plus the infinitive clause. Bare infinitive, okay? Always after a modal verb, never to. Okay? Here, this is a hypothetical situation. Or imaginary. That's why it's so common. Because we're putting ourselves into a situation that just is not real. So, if I were you, I'm not, but if I were, I would try again. Okay. Curiosity is I can always substitute was for were. Always. Okay. It's more formal and it's often seen more in written English, not so much in spoken English, but there are people who always use this form, who always use were, who never use was, but you can use it if you like. Okay. So it's unreal. Okay. This is hypothetical. The third conditional is often referred to as the impossible conditional. Now, the reason it's because The reason it is the impossible condition is because you're referring to a situation that is over and you're changing the circumstances for an outcome that's different, but obviously impossible because it's over. So here I have again if, all right, plus the past perfect in this case. And in the second part I've got would and have, always would have, plus a past participle. Okay? So the typical teacher sentence, if you had studied, but you didn't. If you had studied, you would have passed. So you didn't study, but I'm saying if you had studied, you didn't pass, you would have passed. Okay? So this one is called the impossible conditional. Because you're changing the circumstances, right? And it's over. Okay, so that's it. You've got the 4 conditionals, the 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now, a lot of native speakers and teachers who start out teaching conditionals are often asked, how many conditionals are there? There are a lot. They don't know exactly. There are 4 basic conditionals, and then we have 2 mixed conditionals. This is the reason, and we mix conditionals all the time. This is the reason that a lot of us, when we're speaking, we don't think what we're saying, about what we're saying, and we don't realize that we're mixing a second and a third conditional. I'll talk about the 2 mixed conditionals that we have, all right? And that would be an extension. This would be, if you had to teach the conditionals, you'd probably divide it into 3 lessons. Working on the 0 in the first conditional, 1 lesson, and then the second conditional. Once they get used to that, then going into the third conditional, okay? So it wouldn't be a lesson on a one-day thing. Now, the mixed conditionals are type 2 mixed with type 3. That would be the second conditional and the third conditional, or the third conditional mixed with the second conditional. So these are kind of difficult to understand, okay? Imagine a second where I have a situation. Look at an example of one. If I weren't shy, but I am, if I weren't shy, so this is a second conditional, I would have asked him out. Okay? So this, if you notice, is the third conditional that corresponds to this, but this one is the second conditional. So this corresponds to the second hypothetical. I am shy, but if I weren't shy, but I am, so hypothetical situation. I would have asked, that didn't happen. I didn't ask him out, so that the opportunity is passed. So in reality, I don't have that option anymore. That's why I've got the 2 situations. I am shy, and my opportunity to ask him out is gone, okay? So that would be this sort of mixed conditional. We also have this sort of mixed conditional. Imagine if they hadn't built the new ring road, traffic would be chaotic. Okay? So here I have the third conditional, the first part of the third conditional, which is the past perfect. Here, they did build it, so that's why it's an impossible situation. I'm changing circumstances. But if they hadn't built it, right, traffic would be, this is the result of something that isn't true because it's been built. If it hadn't been built, then traffic would be even worse, okay? So again, a combination, the third conditional here, and the would be corresponding to the second conditional. This is the most confusing type of conditional to teach them. They don't understand it, and you have to work with them with loads of examples of situations that are impossible and conditional, hypothetical and impossible, okay? And that's it for the conditionals. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.